My name is Hunter Proven, and I'm a cycle tourist. I have planned and participated in bicycle tours in 14 different countries: America, Germany, Denmark, Poland, Ukraine, Netherlands, Belgium, England, France, Switzerland, Spain, Thailand, Laos, and Australia. Most of these were solo tours, but even when I went with friends, I planned all of these itineraries because I'm good at planning bicycle tours and I like doing it. What made things easier for me was that I could speak the local language or regional lingua franca in most of these countries. So I've got no GoPro video to share with you, but am I legit? Well, you can check out my rides on Strava. And I used to have a lot of King of the Mountains. I think I might have had 7 King of the Mountains, all in Charlottesville, cycling during my semi-competitive phase. I've retained one of those, Airport to Advanced Mills, to Frey Mills, and back. That's one that I think no one ever does, so that's why I'm still the King of the Mountain. I have some hiking King of the Mountain from Georgia. I didn't even know I had that until now. My longest tour was in France, where I cycled over 1,600 miles in 40 days. I had the initial goal of cycling from Mainz, Germany, along the Rhine and Mosel cycling routes, followed by the famed Loire Valley in France. I would be camping, but packing light, not cooking anything. When a restaurant was within about 5 miles of my campsite, I would try for that restaurant. Otherwise, I would eat store-bought items that didn't require any preparation at the campsite. It was just as well because I wouldn't have been able to afford eating out every night for 40 days straight anyway. I figured I would cycle the established routes over a few weeks, using other modes of transit to quickly get from one to the next cycling network. Instead, I became hooked on the concept of continuously cycling from A to B to C to D and so on. After my first experiment cycling on the roads in France turned out to be pleasant, I never looked back and wound up cycling around 5/6 of the hexagon counterclockwise and finally ending in Lyon after 6 weeks. I did that tour without a smartphone. It was in 2006, before the time of smartphones. So when I left the cycling routes for the open road, I planned each day's itinerary the night before using higher resolution regional road maps. I just put a straight edge between where I was and the direction I wanted to go on the map and figured out the most direct route, avoiding highways that would go about 50 miles. I'm not much of a handyman. I can fix flats, but that's about it. I'm resourceful though. One time in the middle of nowhere while touring in Laos, I removed screws from the furniture of my hotel room until I found one that could replace the screw securing my bike rack to the frame that had fallen out the day before. What I excel at is logistics, planning the ideal route given a set of hard constraints and preferences. For me, cost was always a constraint, and wanting to avoid big roads was a strong preference. I've always enjoyed taking advantage of train transport where convenient, affordable, and not necessitating too many transfers. For my own tour planning, I like to see historic sites and experience the food and drink of a region, so I often try to formulate an itinerary around attractions I already know about and/or hard logistics start and end nodes, and then refine it by searching for additional attractions in between that I didn't know about. I like to exhaustively check out all the options because I get a sense of satisfaction knowing that I improved my future bicycle tour experience. So if you are like me, if you go through several rounds planning and refining your itinerary, you get to feel pretty satisfied even before you hop on the bike. On my first bicycle tour in Spain, the bike I brought with me was then stolen in Sevilla. This happened at the end of my trip when the only hostel with availability during a regional holiday didn't let me store the bicycle inside. In that case, the loss of the bicycle relieved me of the logistics burden that a bicycle entails. That's how I had to look at it. When I did a cycle tour in Tasmania, it was as part of an around the world journey without a bicycle. I bought a bicycle in Hobart, Tasmania, toured around half the island, and then sold it about 10 days later in the same city. A few years later, I returned to Spain, this time with a friend. Me and my best friend Ramsey both bought Trek FX bikes in Bordeaux and proceeded to cycle to Bilbao in the Basque Country over about 2 weeks. I had had good experiences with the Trek FX bike for touring, and that was my recommendation for us to buy them. We both ended up keeping these bicycles. The most memorable part of this tour was the descent from the rail to trail down to the city of Leiza in Navarre. It was one of those stick your legs out to slow down kind of descents. After the tour, Ramsey tried bringing his bike by train back to Bordeaux, where he was living. He told me later that the train connections and or bicycle accommodations were not very amenable, but this was 10 years ago and things may have changed. I ended up flying with my bike out of Bilbao to my relatives in Cologne. I paid a nominal fee to a bike shop there to pack my bike in a box and was able to carry it myself back to my nearby Airbnb to store it in the garage. Bike boxes are large and awkward to carry, but I have long arms and my Airbnb was literally around the block. This was perfect planning and I arranged for a taxi to take me to the airport the next day. On that trip, I also got to see the Scorpions live in concert for a 50th anniversary tour. This was not the reason for the tour, and I only learned of the concert in Bilbao after we'd already made all the planning. So it was just good luck that it happened at that time, and also I had the foresight to find out that it was happening. So I bought tickets for that. I also got to take part in really interesting, on a different tour, really interesting Celtic cultural event called Keltoi 2017. That's at Ringwall Otzenhausen in Germany. People dressed up like Celts and Romans and did reenactments and plays. Before I generalize a little bit about what we enjoyed in our tour in Spain, I've got to say I've only cycled between Valencia and Sevilla, crossing the mountains into Cordoba, just from the north, along basically a direct line, not going along the coast. And then I did this Basque tour that only saw like the very northeastern part of Spain. That being said, I like the landscapes of Spain. I like the desolation between Sevilla and Valencia. There's a lot of desolate landscape. The Basque lands, I really liked the forests everywhere, but it's also a mountainous place. The one thing, I don't want to generalize too much because I haven't been cycling in other parts of Spain. Countries that are more mountainous will generally have less roads that will get you from one place to another when you're in the mountains because there's just less options for cheaply making roads. So in that case, you will more often have to go on bigger roads than you otherwise would want to, or you go on roads that could be in disrepair going through small villages that are also going up and down a lot more. And it's a good workout going up and down if you're ready for it, but there is a risk of poor road condition on in the roads between very small villages, especially in the mountains. It's a country by country basis and area by area basis as well. That being said, one resource that I have used to check road conditions and also has route planning features is called Komoot, Komoot. Touring in the Basque Lands also offered a really unique experience where you feel like you're in an alien culture. They speak a different language. It's not an Indo-European language, but yet you're in the heart of Western Europe. And it was a culinary and linguistic adventure in that respect. Most cycle tourists using bike cases or bike boxes that are too bulky to carry with them on the tour will have to leave the case at the left luggage of their accommodation where they start the tour. After my successful experience relying on a bike store to pack my bike in a box at the destination city, I often do tours from one city to another without needing to transit back to the original city. I call this shop boxing. I just make arrangements in advance with a bike shop in the destination city to pack my bike into a box. It's a trade-off. So what are the advantages of not having to fly out of the same city you landed in? You don't have to go back where you came from, either by cycling or by mass transit. You can spend the time you would have needed to transit back either relaxing, sightseeing, or cycling for another day. Carrying everything with you also means you are not obliged to ask for permission to leave your bicycle case or box in the left luggage of your accommodation. When you are free to arrive and depart from different airports, you'll usually be able to find a cheaper and/or more convenient flight itinerary because you have so many options to choose from, versus having to fly in and out of the same airport. This is valid at least for many of the cheaper airlines in Europe where one-ways cost the same as a round trip, like Wizz Air, for example. There are a few disadvantages to relying on a bike packing service. The first is that you have to make arrangements with a bicycle shop and pay for the packing service. Typically, they may require a half or full day to pack your bicycle. You need to ask them how long it will take and factor that into your logistics. You're free to do what you want during this time, however, versus having to be stuck on a bus or train if you needed to transit back to your starting city. So you could do some sightseeing in the city or do a little loop around the countryside of the city where you're staying while you wait for the shop to box your bike. Another disadvantage versus using your own case is that there may be an increased risk of damage to your bicycle during shipping because these cardboard boxes are pretty flimsy. They'll put some foam pieces in there to help protect it. From an environmental standpoint, it would be more environmentally friendly to reuse your case or box and packing materials versus throwing away the box and packing materials each time. So if you are planning your bicycle tour and you want some help figuring out where you should ride your bicycle, where you should stay in a campground, Airbnb, or Booking.com, or camp in the woods, or where you should fly in and out of, yes, I'm interested to help you for $40 an hour. If you're watching this and thinking, man, I would like to go on a bicycle tour with Hunter Proven to Thailand, for instance, and make use of not only his route planning abilities, but his ability to speak Thai and order whatever food I want at the little mom and pop restaurants dotting the rural countryside that we would be cycling over on immaculate roads for the most part. Yeah, I could be available for that if you can cover my expenses plus $100 a day. Let's look at day 3 of my Thailand tour. I did this with my friend Norman. You can see most of my tours on Strava. I became a member in maybe 2011 or so, and then I logged all my rides. If it didn't happen on Strava, it actually never happened, is what they say. Thailand tour day 3, we had a bit of elevation going up, but then we went down a lot, and then there was just one climb kind of in the middle, but kind of steep, where we went like 300 meters, 200 or 300 meters, and then it was just coasting down the rest of the day to our hotel. We had started in Chiang Mai on day 1, and I'm showing you day 3. This was a great tour. We started in Chiang Mai and then went to Isan, that's northeastern part of Thailand, and went through most of the provinces there over several weeks.